Hello, everyone. I hope you're all enjoying your Friday so far because it's going to get a lot better. Welcome to FSMA Friday. My name is Jim Albright, and I'm very excited about today's topic, food safety culture. Now, we've talked about food safety culture on before, but with all the new requirements coming out from GFSI recognized certifications like BRC or SQF, I think it's time for us to dig in more on how to assess where your company's food safety culture maturity stands and what you need to do to take it to the next level. Now, for those of you who are new to the series, thanks for joining us today. This is a collaboration between the Acheson Group, who's a global leader in food safety and compliance consulting services, and Safety Chain, the developers of an easy to implement and easy to use platform which digitizes plant processes to make faster, more informed decisions, which not only saves you a ton of time and cost, but gets you audit ready in just 2 clicks. FSMA Friday is the place for updates, insights, and guidance around the Food Safety Modernization Act, and it's your chance to get your questions answered by our food safety experts who join us every month. All right, as you can see, we've muted all attendee mics, but again, we're leaving room at the end so that you can get your questions answered, and all you have to do is put your questions into the Q&A panel, and we'll do our very best to get through them all. Okay. Let's meet our presenter today. I am happy to welcome back Dr. Angela Ferelli Gruber, who is the Senior Manager of Food Safety over at the Acheson Group. Now, she's not only been helping food producers meet GFSI audit standards and FSMA compliance, but she's been helping F&B clients with their hazard assessments and regulatory preparedness, and of course, building stronger food safety culture. Angela, it is awesome to have you back. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks so much for having me. It's great to talk about food safety culture here today.
All right, let us dive in. We have some FSMA updates, right?
We do.
Here we go.
All right, so first, a couple of updates here from the constituent portal of FDA. So firstly, we have the FDA updated its list of chemicals currently under the agent's review. The chemicals new to this updated list are BHA, BHT, ADA, and some of the colors as well. So this is a post-market review effort that the FDA is going to undertake with these specific chemicals that they're updating to this list, and it's part of a larger initiative to address food chemical oversight. The next update we have that was posted on 8/18 is the FDA announced they're going to hold a virtual public meeting and listening session for food allergen thresholds and their potential applications. So this webinar and these listening sessions are going to be held between November 18th and 20th. And on the webinar page, FDA states that Insight is going to help FDA determine priorities and develop food allergen threshold approaches that benefit public health. The next update that we have from 8/6 is that FDA is proposing to extend the compliance date for the food traceability rule by 30 months. And that will that's a proposal right now that you can comment on until September 8th. In this proposal, they are not expecting to change any of the rule requirements, just when the compliance date will begin. Lastly, FDA has proposed a rule to amend the standard of identity for orange juice, reducing the BRICS amount, the type of sugars amount, from 10.5 to minimum 10%. And this is in response to industry petition where members, particularly in Florida, were finding it very hard over the last few decades due to severe weather events and Huanglongbing or citrus greening disease to meet the 10.5% threshold. So they are hoping for a 10% threshold. So that proposal is going on as well. Not related to FSMA, but this is related to foodborne illness monitoring. So I put this in here. Experts, as of July 1, the Foodborne Disease Active Surveillance Network, FoodNet, program is going to reduce surveillance from a number of pathogens that was included on that list to now only Salmonella and Shiga toxin producing E. coli. Experts in the space are worried that without active surveillance of all 8 pathogens, public health officials might not be able to adequately compare trends over time or notice when cases of a particular illness are starting to rise. So just keep that on the radar for us about changing of how we potentially can quickly identify and respond to outbreaks. So I thought that was important to include. Next slide. Okay, what are we going to be talking about today? Today's talk is all about food safety culture, what it is, some tips and tricks about how to build it, and how to measure your food safety culture. We'll kind of dive into that a little bit at the end. Go ahead, next slide. There are a few definitions for what food safety culture is, taken from the literature. And in taking all of this together, it's, it's different from what is written in your programs. It's basically the unspoken and intuitive environment that is on the floor of your facility, and it encounters these deeply rooted beliefs, behaviors, and assumptions that are learned and shared by all employees that impact food safety performance of your organization. Essentially, what we like to boil it down to at TAG, it's what you are willing to walk past on the manufacturing floor. Go ahead, next slide. So as part of this talk, we will spend the first section here talking about some key elements that we at TAG really believe through the literature and through our on-site assessments, what really make up food safety culture. So that is leadership, risk awareness, your environment, communication, shared goals and commitment, and accountability. We're going to go into each of these elements in the next few slides. We'll include some tips on how to implement each in your facility. And important to notice here as I go through these that there's a good level of interconnectedness with some of these elements. So as I go through the presentation, think about or see if you can connect some of these, elements together to one another. And the interconnectedness is actually key because that's how we build a strong network of food safety on the floor. Okay, so first, leadership. So leadership is so important because leaders in our organization have the power to sort of set the standard and establish what should be a priority in the organization. And we as food safety folks know that food safety should be a leading priority in the organization. Good leadership is fully accessible, it's highly visible to subordinates, and it also advocates for food safety excellence by providing support where they can, by providing support on the floor and also leading by example. So walking the walk is very important in this space. Go ahead, next slide. Here are some ways that leadership can drive food safety culture. First, by setting up a strong mission and vision that includes food safety and quality in that mission and vision. We want to make sure that that mission and vision is communicated throughout the organization, posted on, in different spaces that employees might be. And then it really is the foundation of why we do what we do at certain facilities, right? Next is setting meaningful and measurable KPIs related to food safety. So putting food safety into KPIs makes food safety by default a bigger priority in the organization. So we really do recommend thinking with the strategic leadership team of what sort of food safety KPIs make sense for your facility to measure that would result in, higher food safety and quality of product, and that can also help the food safety culture. A word of caution when we're creating KPIs, we want to make sure that we're setting ourselves up for success in this area, and we don't want to be in a situation where we're incentivizing food safety programs to not be followed by putting in some KPIs that might not make the best of sense. For example, I think I have it on the slide here, right? If we set a KPI of 0 Listeria positives in a quarter for our EMP, then how can we be sure that we're not actually incentivizing our employees not to look their best for Listeria? So a better KPI in this example would change to something like 100% of root cause analyses performed on non-conformances or EMP findings prevent repeat incidence occurrence. So that gives the employees the bandwidth to be able to do that search and destroy that they really need to do for an EMP and find Listeria, right? Listeria finding, we want to find it if it's there. And it puts the performance indicator on, okay, well, how well are we actually doing on fixing problems when they do arise? So we would say, think about your food safety KPIs to make sure that they're, measuring what we want them to measure. Finally, a strong food safety culture has leadership that's actively and meaningfully involved with subordinates through regular communication and engagement. So that means having meetings with folks and communication with different departments that include managers of different levels, where food safety is always a regular topic. So if it's a regular topic, that means it's top of mind for everybody. It's a priority in the organization, right? We shouldn't have or not as mature food safety cultures will only have food safety on topics, meeting topics if there's a problem, right? We should also celebrate the wins with food safety, and that's a good and easy way to put food safety on these meetings regularly. If we don't have anything negative to say, maybe we'll say something positive. So on the right of these implementation slides, you'll see like a 4-piece jigsaw puzzle here. I put in some topics that we can think of as potential building blocks to get our way to a mature food safety culture. In general, the starting building blocks I put on the upper left, and then we move down and over. And then the upper right is the last, or like last building block, or you can think of it as what we see in really mature food safety cultures. So for leadership, we would start this building a food safety culture by making sure we have a mission and vision that is socialized to everyone in the organization. It includes food safety. Then if you want to go a bit deeper, look into your KPIs, make sure that they include food safety and they have meaningful targets that actually result in making your food safety program stronger. And then, going into super mature food safety cultures in this particular area, it's pretty simple. It's making sure that leadership is getting out there with subordinates. So middle managers are accessible and having regular meetings with their employees. Higher management is having regular meetings with middle management in an interdepartmental sort of way. So we're not very siloed from department to department to department as well. Go ahead, next slide. The next key element here is risk awareness. So this is the perception as well as the understanding that all levels and functions of actual and potential hazards and risks associated with food safety are understood by employees, right? Integral to this is the why of why employees get trained on something, why they have to do it a certain way. So boil it down to what are the risks? What are the hazards? Does everybody know what all the risks and hazards are? And can everybody work in such a way to prevent those things from happening? And we want to get ourselves thinking about this in a way where we feel confident that our employees are on the floor and they have a developed risk assessment mindset where they can look at something and quite easily assess, would I let my family eat this if whatever is about to happen on the floor happened, right? And that can get them to figure out, oh, no, I have to stop the line. I got to tell someone, we have to make a change here, right? So risk assessment's very key, and it's especially key for our floor employees because those are our first line of defense in our food safety program. Go ahead, next slide. All right, so how do we implement risk awareness when we're building a food safety culture in our facility? So first, we want to think about making sure that all employees know the risks associated with the products that they sell. You also want to make sure, as I said on the last slide, everybody knows why managing the risk is important and how they need to work to effectively manage those risks. So this means that your training programs need to be thorough and risk-based. Everyone should be aware of your preventive controls, things like that. To start building a program, we'd recommend first on making sure that those training programs are pretty watertight. They include all activities that you do at your facility, and everybody who needs to be trained is trained. Great programs highlight shared goals of making safe food that is permeated through both training and communications with employees, and also includes incentives to create internal motivation for those employees to do the right thing. For example, just, abiding by GMPs without being constantly told to do so from their supervisors or other external means. The best programs in this space empower and reward employees to communicate and act if they see something amiss. And in these mature food safety cultures, we also see a lot of proactive ongoing training that is informed by a variety of different data inputs. So the history of what's been going on in the plant, near misses, things that are going on in sister plants, or emerging science. So that's what we usually see in very mature programs with respect to training. Another important thing here is that employees have feel comfortable calling out things that they see or needs that they have to be able to, learn the job better or learn what they need to do better so that they can perform their job more adequately. Go ahead, next slide. Okay, the next key element is environment. So this is the visible or evident organizational structures, processes, and activities, including resources, equipment, buildings, staff, and the training that's available within an organization that enables proper food safety. Environment has a significant effect on employee behaviors and motivations. So, we don't have pictures of facilities, but if we just look at, offices and compare two pictures of two folks' offices here, which one of these offices do you think you could be more successful in? The one that's on the left that's got, some opportunities to it, or the one on the right? So just think about that relating to on the floor with our employees. If we have everything set up for them, right, and we're nice and organized, there's good hygienic flow, things are set up in a way where they can easily be successful, it'll be easier for them to perform those food safety duties and uphold the safety and quality expectations of their job. Go ahead, next slide. So for implementation, there's not a lot here, but I do understand that it can be challenging in terms of how to set up the environment for success, especially when we have maybe folks in the audience who are dealing with a facility that's a legacy facility that has some historic challenges with respect to hygienic flow. But to the best of your ability, this is what we would recommend working on in terms of environment for setting up food safety culture success. So look at your infrastructure, look at the tools that you have available to employees to be able to do their job safely, and also make sure that the support programs for employees are active and are working effectively. So that means maintenance work order systems, the CAPA system, your preventative maintenance. If there are significant issues in these three aspects of the environment, it's going to be very hard to build a very mature food safety culture, because you're going to be mired in, getting regular work done or addressing problems as they come up. As I mentioned a little bit, but in terms of the building blocks here, what you want to start with is, start with getting nailing down your different components of your hygienic flow and staging of people, product, equipment, and tools. Then work on maybe the maintenance work order system if that needs a little help. So then that can build your foundation, and then moving into a more proactive sort of mindset. Then dive into the preventive maintenance system, making sure that that is all good to go. And then really mature food safety cultures ensure that when it becomes time for CapEx planning, food safety continuous improvement projects are always top of mind, or always included in the list of CapEx projects. And we don't just have a situation where food safety upgrades only happen if something breaks or if there's a problem. Go ahead, next slide. Okay, the next one is communication. So communication, what is it? Quite simply, it's the quality of transfer of food safety messages and information sharing across an organization. So this means both the communication that happens between departments, operations, quality, sales, logistics, and also the messaging of food safety on the floor itself. So places with good food safety culture have many lines of open communication, and we do not find big siloing in these facilities, so that there's regular meetings between departments. People work on projects together, not only when there's a problem. Things like that. That's what we see in the most mature food safety culture. That's what we see in facilities that have the most mature food safety culture. So in terms of messaging on the floor, what I have here is the different modalities that you can use to ensure that your food safety messaging on the floor is going to be taken up by your employees. And the best messaging makes sure that it includes at least one or more of these important aspects. So those are making sure that something's rapid, understandable, someone can easily take the information and understand what it means. It's compelling, making sure messaging is accurate, making sure messaging is repeated. So it's not just in the break room, it's out on the floor as well. And then also making sure that any messaging covers all of the spoken languages that you might find at your facility, and that they are culturally sensitive. So go ahead, next slide. We can look at some examples of messaging from another topic. This is worker health and safety that might be in your facility today. And I just wanted to point out how these various messages take into account those important messaging characteristics from the last slide. So the first one, working from the left to right, the first one is a series of pictures. These are understandable, they're relevant, so they're specific, and they're rapid. So you look at one picture and you understand what that risk is, right? In the middle there, the two, safety is job number one and safety is no accident. Those are compelling messages. Think safety is a rapid message, so it's just to keep it at top of mind. And then the last one here, safety first, think safe, work safe. It also includes, some cultural competency and some multilingual aspects. So all together in one facility, this is repeated, and they do this with worker safety to keep it at top of mind. And so the challenge for you all to build your food safety culture programs is to do the same stuff with food safety messaging to keep food safety top of mind for all workers, not just workers who are in quality. So that can look like, where your GMP signs are, what your GMP signs look like, segregation signage for allergen handling areas or high hygiene areas. You can use some of these strategies that have been used for workplace safety for food safety messaging as well. Go ahead, next slide. All right, so thinking about how to implement good communication in your facility. So first of all, we want to foster an environment where communication reiterates the importance of food safety for employees at all position levels. They're multimodal, as I said in the last few slides. We want to make sure that leaders ensure that food safety is a common topic in meetings with managers and in departmental meetings. And what this could look like is, one snippet of food safety info is included at every pre-shift meeting of floor employees, right? It doesn't have to, we don't have to do like a whole entire dog and pony show every single meeting. But if you just have a sentence about food safety at all the pre-shift meetings, then it just keeps it at top of mind, which is what we want to do. If we go into the higher maturity of food safety culture, this is where facilities really value employee feedback to improve various systems. And at the pinnacle here of communication is where we see vast interconnectedness between departments like ops and quality, where they work regularly on not just solving problems, but on continuous improvement projects as well. Next slide. Okay. Another key aspect is a sense of shared goals and commitment to food safety throughout the organization at all levels of employee. So what this means is it's the extent to which an organization consistently values and prioritizes food safety. When this is strong, it's evidenced by employees at every single level understanding that their work contributes to making safe food. These employees are dedicated at doing their best job to ensure that the food they make is something that they want their family members to eat. So in essence, what this comes down to is whoever you interview in the facility, people would say stuff like, we're all in this together, like one facility, one goal. No matter if you're talking to, the guy running the forklift in logistics, or the person running the metal detector, or the person who's like packing boxes, right? Everybody has this shared goal. That's the pinnacle of mature food safety cultures in this area. Go ahead, next slide. Okay, so how do we implement this sense of shared goals and commitment? So no surprise here, the best programs have this ingrained at the leadership level, and it permeates kind of through all the other levels as well. We see in the best programs that food safety is a business objective, and that's reflected in an organization's vision, mission, and values that are kind of regularly communicated and even updated to reflect new priorities. The next step is having strong food safety related KPIs with associated incentives that are meaningful, and that can really help drive employee performance in a real positive way. And the positive way that it drives performance, you're also going to get more engaged employees, which is another key aspect of upholding a strong food safety cultures. Facilities with really mature food safety cultures in this area ensure that food safety is a key component of all strategic planning and operational discussions, and that food safety has a seat at the table when making financial and operational decisions. So what you're going to see, a common sort of thread throughout this talk, is when you have a really mature food safety culture in your facility, the responsibility of food safety is not just regulated to quality. It is kind of everybody's talking about it, and it's top of mind in multiple different ways throughout like facility operations and planning. Go ahead, next slide. Okay. Next, we have accountability. So this is about the ability to hold employees at all levels responsible for food safety performance. Key to success in this area is focusing on positive reinforcement of food safe behaviors, because research has actually shown that positive reinforcement in the form of incentives or recognition are more successful at building a mature food safety culture compared to relying on punitive measures only. So when you think about it, no one really wants to feel like they're under constant surveillance by the GMP police at all times, right? You want to get to a place where people have the intrinsic motivation to do the right thing, because that is going to be more successful at having a food safety program that's sustainable and strong in the long run. And this is very hard to build, right? Especially if you are struggling with challenges like increased turnover of employees and things like that. But we'll talk about some tips on how you can work on this in the next slide. Go ahead. Okay, so how to get started with this? Well, first, we want to make sure that you have performance metrics for your employees. We want to make sure that we have expectations, food safety expectations that are out there on the floor, that are simple and clear, risk-based, and they are relevant. Then we want to work on ensuring that employees know what these expectations are, and that they are kind of regularly talked about in day-to-day operations. And this can be, it doesn't, have to be a big thing, but if you as a middle manager can provide employees timely, regular, consistent feedback on just how they're doing, quick pulse, quick check, how they're doing on some of their food safety expectations, that really, again, keeps everything top of mind, and keeps food safety as a priority. The next block here would be starting to develop incentives like recognition programs, preferred parking, meal gift cards, opportunities to advance employees in their career if they're consistently meeting the set food safety expectations. And the key here is to keep employees positively engaged, which again can be a challenge. But if we have engaged employees, that is one of the best ways to build a consistent and strong food safety culture. So we always, talk about, focus on the employees and also the infrastructure as well to the best of your ability that you can. But sometimes, what you have available to you is just working with the people, and working with the people sometimes is effective enough, right, to move your food safety culture from the step that it's at to the next step. Facilities with fairly mature food safety culture in this area are able to collect performance-related data information and track it and use it to inform priorities in the future, like training initiatives and things like that. And this gets us to a more proactive mindset of determining what expectations are and how you can leverage these food safety expectations to build programs that are, better and better and better. Go ahead, next slide. Okay, so putting it all together, we learned about the building blocks of creating food safety culture in a facility. So let's talk about the outcomes of a strong food safety culture and some of the challenges that make building food safety culture hard. So the outcomes of a mature food safety culture on the left here are employees that want to work there, plain and simple. They care about the work that they do. They feel like their concerns are taken seriously. They want to do the right thing, and they have the right tools to be able to do all the right thing. Facility-wide, what this translates to is a place where you, again, don't have to only focus on external pressure onto folks to have them do the right thing. Folks just know what the right thing is to be done, and they will do it. Mature food safety cultures do end up having fewer food safety violations. And when food safety issues occur, these facilities are well positioned to work on it effectively and get to the root cause of these issues to prevent a reoccurrence from happening. So in essence, mature food safety cultures are able to move from being firefighters and being reactive to food safety events, where usually what we see is the majority of the responsibility of the food safety program and making safe food is on the FSQA department. And we move to a situation where it's a more preventive mindset of food safety, where food safety is a shared responsibility in all departments, not just FSQA. And these strong teamwork elements allow folks to work on projects that are sort of future-minded, that end up providing the opportunity for the company as a whole to make more money moving forward. So there is significant economic benefit for having a strong food safety culture. On the right, in this little box, I highlighted some of the challenges to building a strong food safety culture that is very common. All of us, folks on the webinar right now might be thinking you might have one or more of these challenges. And that's very common, right? The goal is just trying to figure out how we can work to build a culture knowing that we have these challenges in place. So some of the ones that we commonly see at TAG are, we see, great written programs, great written food safety programs that don't translate to the floor. We see a limited prioritization of food safety by leadership. We have another thing we see is historic organization structures that don't promote communication between departments. We also see as a big hindrance to food safety culture when the organization as a whole prioritizes waste reduction or cost savings or production goals only, and food safety goals are not, don't have a seat at that table. Another challenge that we see a lot of the time is high staff turnover. And this high staff turnover can also be a symptom of, have food safety culture challenges, right? So this is what we see sometimes, but it's not, you can definitely work with these challenges as well, especially in terms of, having the programs translate to the floor. That's one of the ones that I would recommend starting with, because sometimes, getting that leader buy-in, that takes a little bit longer of a trajectory to check that one off your list. Go ahead, next slide. All right, so you might be thinking, okay, I know the aspects important to building food safety culture, but how do I know where we're at in our facility, and how do I know what to work on to make our food safety culture better? And so my advice to that is to measure where you are to determine where you need to go. So there's many good reasons to measure your company's food safety culture. We have a couple of the reasons in these bullet points on this slide. So anything that you measure is going to compel a person to optimize their score on that metric. So if you measure it, people are going to focus on it, right? What gets measured is prioritized and will get done. Human beings do adjust behavior based on the metrics that they're held against. So again, it goes back to if there's no expectation set, then people don't know, okay, how am I supposed to work, right? And the other benefits of having a measurement is that measurement and data will reduce the amount that people can argue against. Okay, well, why do we have to make this change? Why do we need to prioritize this in this way? Because without data, it just becomes very subjective, and having data can help justify an argument to get, prioritization of food safety to the next level. So that's why we would recommend to measure where you're at in your food safety culture at your facility. Go ahead, next slide. Okay, how to measure something like food safety culture, right? It kind of seems a little like amorphous. How do we actually get all of these thoughts and feelings about how we work in this facility into something that is some data that we can use to make a change, right? So what we have done at TAG is we've created a multimodal tool to measure food safety culture. And if you are going to measure it on your own at your own facility, we really do recommend using a multimodal, couple of different ways to collect information about culture. So I'm going to provide one strategy that you can use. There's a bunch of different other ones, but one way that you can do this is you can start by creating a survey that has information on it about all the different food safety key elements, food safety culture key elements, and sending that survey out to different levels of the organization. When you get that data back, you can go through how people are saying how they think about the food safety culture of these different aspects, how they feel about communication, how they feel about prioritization of food safety goals throughout the company. Then what you do is you would take that information and then you would go into some focus groups where you can really dive into this a little bit deeper. Another method that we recommend here is getting out on the floor and doing interviews as well, because floor people are going to be candid and tell you what they think needs to be done. And, some of that feedback is extremely helpful, right? So all of that together can help you build a data set of where you currently are in your food safety culture. Go ahead, next slide. So as I mentioned on the previous slide, TAG developed a multimodal tool to assess food safety culture. It starts off with a survey, then it goes into some focus groups and some one-on-one interviews. And we cover topics that are based on the literature about food safety culture. So we divide our work into 5 different sections that cover all of the key elements that I talked about in this webinar today. We specifically focus on vision and mission. We focus a lot on people, consistency of food safety executed throughout the facility, adaptability, how well food safety is worked on when problems arise or when there's opportunities, and hazard and risk awareness as well. So we will send out a survey that has questions that are worded sort of what you see on the screen here, where we ask people, this is how we start it, right? We ask people, do you agree? What is the degree that you either agree or disagree with this statement? And so this helps us understand, get like the starting point of how people are feeling about the food safety performance and the food safety culture of a specific facility. And then we would use the focus groups to kind of dive in a little bit more. And altogether, what we do is we collect this qualitative data, and then we're able to compute it into a semi-quantitative ranking of your food safety culture. So go ahead, next slide. We can see an example of that. And this is what it would look like. So we're able to come up with a 1 to 5 score for each of these sections: vision, mission, people, consistency, adaptability, hazard and risk awareness. And we would give you this score to be able to tell you where on the line of maturity you fall. So scores that are closer to 1 represent emerging or reactive food safety cultures in a facility, and scores closer to 5 represent cultures that are well interconnected with, within different departments, that are proactive in food safety and focused on continuous improvement. Go ahead, next slide. So I've included a few examples here of some things that we see in facilities that have a more reactive food safety culture on the left and a more proactive food safety culture on the right. So on the left, what we see are, if you're more reactive, we see that you might have food safety KPIs. You might not, but if you do have food safety KPIs, they might not be well communicated, might not be relevant to the actual safety of the product, or not used for tracking and trending. We also see in these examples, food safety upgrades only occur when issues arise. GMPs are a challenge to enforce, and we see in more reactive food safety cultures, departments are heavily siloed, so that communication is hindered significantly. On the flip side, in places where we have very mature food safety cultures, we have strong KPIs related to food safety that are understood and well implemented. We see food safety integral to CapEx planning. We see people have an intrinsic motivation to work in a certain way. We see a lot of interdepartmental work that goes on at these facilities. And then we also see that in the most mature programs, folks have a wealth of all this data that they're tracking, and they're actually using it to forecast what they should do in future projects, making future decisions, things like that. Go ahead, next slide. So a few key highlights in closing to think about as we close this talk on food safety culture. Building a food safety culture includes building a positive work environment first and foremost, and we need buy-in from all levels of the organization, most importantly from leadership. And we want to see that permeate all the way down to the floor as well. Strong food safety culture results in more efficiently run facilities that are poised for future opportunities instead of being mired in firefighting every day. It does result in lower food safety risk and higher economic potential. And finally, what I want to leave you with is, we recommend you figure out where you're at today, right? And if you can figure out where you're at today, then you can use that data to set small, measurable goals to build food safety culture over time. What we would recommend is either starting in your weakest area that needs the most help, or give yourself a few easy wins, right? Find the low-hanging fruit in terms of food safety culture and address those, and use that as motivation to work on some of the more challenging aspects of food safety culture in your organization. And TAG is here to help you along the way if you'd like to work with us. And with that, I think I will take any questions you have.
All right. Excellent, Angela. Thank you so much. And I know this topic isn't going away anytime soon. We are all working on it together, and we're all going to have questions. So yes, it is time for the Q&A. And I think I want to start, Angela, with the point you made at the top, but then it kind of trickled out through the rest of your organization. KPIs. You had said that measurement eliminates argument, but it also helps condition behavior. So you made a lot of references to how this is kind of a leadership thing as well. So the first question would be, do you have any good suggestions to hold leadership accountable for food safety, not just the folks walking the floor?
Yeah, I think that goes back to making sure it's a priority, kind of top down, right? And in terms of leadership, they will respond to things that make that change the economic situation, right? So if you can make a justification that making change and making a priority is going to result in increased profits, or and also decreased losses, decreased downtime, that sort of data will speak.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, you also brought up the fact that there's a lot of turnover in certain industries, especially. And I guess this question is really around how do you accelerate some of that food safety culture or imprint that food safety culture into temporary workers quickly, and then obviously ensure that there's a good way to track that it's successful.
For temporary workers, what I would recommend is setting them up with an ambassador, someone else on the floor who's working, who is a good, who holds the commitment to food safety very near and dear to their heart, so that
Mm,
that temporary worker can quickly understand, oh, this is how we do things around here. This is the expectation. I'm following this person's lead who is doing the right thing, right? So I would definitely have those ambassadors sort of picked out on the floor, and then also give those people who you want to serve as ambassadors some recognition that they're doing such a good job, and they're being they can mentor in this way, right? So they should either get like a little monetary benefit or some sort of preferred parking or something like that.
right, right.
And the second part of your question,
Yeah, that was around, I guess, how do you know that your food safety culture training is actually changing behavior? How do you track it through, again, we were just talking about temporary workers, but throughout all departments,
yeah,
make sure you're not just checking, some box.
right. I think that's where it definitely gets into measuring the hazard and risk assessment level that employees currently have, and taking a look at the training program in this food safety culture, in like a food safety culture assessment.
Right.
So by doing focus groups and interviews with folks, and by taking a look at what your current program includes with training, you'll be able to see gaps of where either people, you're going to ask people, okay, what did you think about XYZ concept? And if it's something that they don't remember, or they can't repeat accurately, then you got to go back to the training and see what are the gaps in the training that's resulting in this, or the execution of after training, the on the floor training,
Right.
right? So that's where a food safety culture assessment is really going to help you identify where those gaps are, when you have something like, you have a full alchemy training in place, right? But how do you figure out if it's actually effective? The food
Right.
safety culture assessment.
Yeah, no, I love it. And I guess as a follow-up, how how often would you say you need to measure food safety culture? Because you don't want to be sending out surveys every month, because then it just becomes maybe some noise. I guess what would be a good cadence to go do the surveys or the focus groups?
Right. That's a good question, because you definitely don't want to over survey people, because then they'll just stop responding. And it's important also to make sure that with your third party audit requirements, like whatever sort of cadence that the third party audit
Yep.
is saying that you assess culture, make sure that your cadence falls in line with that. I think what we do is, what's approachable is maybe once a year, you know, um, because in reality, you get a lot of, if you do a huge assessment, you're going to get a lot of data back, and you're going to identify 6 priorities. It's going to take you a couple of quarters to kind of work on each of those priorities. And then the next year you can kind of see where you're at again, right? And what's reasonable, I said that we tagged as a 1 to 5 scale, and people usually fall like somewhere, like some of the aspects are 4, some of the aspects are 3 and 2. It's normal to see from year to year, if you really work on it, a bump of like 1 point, a half a point to 1 point.
Right. Well, that's the right trajectory, that's for sure. Now, I want to focus back on, because you brought up the idea of continuous improvement, where food safety is not really just something like that you deal with when something goes bump in the night. It's got to be more proactive. And then you also talked about how this should be sort of a capex versus, again, some kind of reactionary expense or a resource allocation. So I guess how do you actually go and make the case for food safety investments in capex planning, where the instant monetary return isn't necessarily immediate?
So it would be something like, oh, we could change this process to something else so that we would need fewer people to operate it. It would need less maintenance, which would require less downtime. We would be able to run like XYZ more different products on this line that could result in increased profits. It would be kind of something like that, depending on what the specific project is.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And maybe for some that might be hard to put together sort of a value proposition like that. But obviously, as we communicate amongst our departments, we'll be able to capture that information and build a case. And again, we may have some senior leaders on this session right now. So maybe there's some good points that they could put into the chat. But overall, getting the executive senior leader commitment and making it, as you say, more of a regular conversation piece at the company level is sort of the key to all this successful.
Yep.
Yeah. Overall, do you have, and I know we had a couple of messages, but in your experience working with so many different food and beverage facilities, do you have I'm going to call it a campaign, some successful campaign where a company put together a program that actually worked towards maturing their food safety culture? Is there a story you can share without naming names?
I think the one that comes most to mind immediately is one where the facility really invested in the people. And with this, they sent their maintenance folks to specific training to get different certifications on how to work with XYZ equipment. They set up a quote unquote sanitation university where they focused on a specific topic for a quarter, and they had targeted trainings by experts where they would give employees the time to go and sit through a seminar about certain things. I think in this specific facility, they also had a fair where they had a bunch of different topics, like a science fair pretty much, on a bunch of different topics related to the facility. Some was on metal detection, some was on allergen, some was on whatever. And employees were able to, through their lunch break, go and learn different things and get little vouchers for things that they've learned. At this facility also, they were able to take these, as I mentioned a couple of answers ago, ambassador employees who were folks who were, exemplary at their position, and they pinned those folks as mentors for new onboarding people. So that just kind of, helped increase the food safety culture throughout the facility. I think that this group also did a lot of work on in HR and hiring in terms of quickly setting the expectations for any potential hire of what they were going to be doing in this facility and what the expectations were. And then setting up regular touch bases in the first 60 and 90 days with these hires to get feedback from them, how they're doing, what sort of resources or needs that they have. So it's a real investment in the people is, I think, one of the good success stories that I can speak on just off the top of my head.
Yeah, and it's personal. It's personalized. Like you even started, make it personal. Would you feed this to your family? You're going and making that one-to-one connection and checking in, and you're measuring along the way.
Yep.
Jean was just asking here, when doing a survey, what % of participation would you expect to see on average in your experience?
Anywhere between 20 and like 39%.
Yeah. But as we said, if you have senior leaders kind of making this a priority and keeping it in the conversation, it should probably go higher, I would think.
Yeah. And it's also why we recommend multimodal ways too, because there's just going to be some people that you're not going to be able to reach with a survey, but you would be able to reach through a focus group or like doing one-on-one interviews with specific folks.
That's right. Yeah, it's pretty exciting actually if you think about what we're doing here, and when we're talking about food safety culture, we're reuniting what I would consider kind of silos in your organization. You're breaking down the walls, and I know that's cliche, but it's true. You're holding everybody accountable, but you can do it in a fun and engaging way. And again, having those constant reminders and calling people out for being champions of food safety. It can be a kind of fun way to keep your employees all engaged and having conversations and enabling them, giving them more authority and power to make a difference. It's not just the one job you have. Your role expands, and this is a critical key component. I always go back to that question: would you feed this to your family? That's super, super impactful. So I love it. All right. I think we'll close down the questions for now, but thank you everybody for those questions. And obviously Angela for bringing us a really good topic of conversation. This again will continue. I want to highlight for those of you who are new to FSMA Friday, we do have a food and beverage manufacturing survey. If you look on your screen, you can see a QR code there. There's also a URL. If you take a moment to fill out the survey, you'll be in the running for a $500 Visa gift card. We do pull this every month. So we wish you luck if you take the survey, but you will also get a copy of the benchmark report. And inside, you're going to learn key insights about what manufacturers, food and beverage manufacturers, just like you, are doing to handle things like breaking down those silos, working with data. One stat you actually can see here on the screen is that 75% of those that were surveyed actually said that they rely on gut instincts or some degree of gut instinct more than actual data. So that's interesting. Anyway, scan that QR code. Let us know what your thoughts are in your plant. And again, good luck in winning that gift card. Now, we also have a lot of resources, especially around this topic of food safety culture. You can head on over to the achesongroup.com or safetychain.com in the resource center. There's a ton of information that we've been working in collaboration with the Acheson Group to provide you. These are tips and tricks, how-to guides, even some video content that you can share with the rest of your group to keep that conversation going and alive. We also have our podcast, Tag Talks, and of course, Safety Chain's FSMA Friday that you can check out and get those regular updates as they come in. So I'd like to thank everybody. This has been a really fun and engaging session. Angela, you are the best, and we definitely want you to come back, and we'll get some more information as new requirements, especially the SQF Code Edition 10, as that's coming out real soon, are going to be talking about food safety culture. It'll be exciting. Okay, everybody, have a great weekend. We'll see you on the next FSMA Friday. Take care, everyone.